fellow bookworms to Tipper's Den. My name is Whitney, and today I have my April wrap up. April was actually an amazing month. I did not get everything read that was on my TBR, but it was a large TBR. But I had 10 5-star books, so that is a lot of 5 stars. It's just a really good month. I did get 19 books read, which is a little higher than my average. I normally average at least 17 books. That's kind of pushing it. So yeah, it was a really, really good month. I am going to do it a little bit differently. My wrap up, how different than how I have been doing it. Because I did participate in Realmathon, which was put on by Cassie over at Covers with Cassidy, and so that her channel will be linked down below. But I did participate in that, and because of that, um, there's just a lot to kind of go through. So I'm just going to jump straight into the star ratings, and then each book I'll tell you kind of what was going on with it. In April, I did average 264 pages a day. I'll go ahead and insert my little calendar here. I still am keeping track of what I'm reading each day. The first 3 days, I didn't read anything. Normally, the first couple days of the month, I'm working on my reading journal, just kind of getting everything ready for the month ahead. And then I dive into reading. So the first 3 days in April, I didn't read anything. I didn't really look to see what my best day was, but on the 15th, which was Peace Talks, that was probably my best weekend, because it was the 15th and 16th, and I finished one book, read 3 books for Peace Talk, and started another book. So that was probably the best weekend. I did get a lot of reading done. At one day, the 28th, so not too long ago, I listened to The Bone Witch. I listened to the last 4 hours of it. I had to go to the bigger city, and so even when I got home, I just finished listening to it, and that way I could get that one done. So that was a pretty good day. But yeah, just a really, really good month. So I'm pretty happy with all that. So let's go ahead and jump into our star ratings. And then after we go over all the books, then I'll go over the stats and my top 3. Again, star ratings does not equal top 3. Star ratings are the ones I found most enjoyable. Top 3 are the ones that kind of are sticking with me, that impacted me the most. So we'll go ahead and start. So first up, we did not have any DNFs, or not any official DNFs anyway, and I'll talk more about that later on. And we only had one 2-star read, and that one was Betrayed by PC and Kristen Cass. This one, we got Purple, which was any genre, and we pulled Goldilocks, and it's Keep Trying, a Second Chance author. So I had read the first one in the series Marked, which the series is House of Night, and I read Marked, and there were things I liked, like the premise of the story, and there were certain things that I really enjoyed about it, but the writing style really, it was a big struggle. So I decided to go ahead. I found a good chunk of the rest of the series at a thrift store, and I picked them up, and then my sister in law, who had gifted me the first in the series, gifted me the next one. Then there's a lot more after that as well, but I definitely wanted to give it more of a try. Unfortunately, I did give it 2.5 stars just because the ending kind of pulled it up a little bit for me. But again, the writing, like, it's like superficial teen drama. Um, and it really detracts from the story. Like, these thing with like teen and YA and such, like mystery thrillers, fantasy, there are these kids taking on like these big things. And so with the authors, I get they're trying to make it more teen like or something, but it just really takes away from the story. There's a lot of pop culture references, which kind of gets under my skin, especially with as many that is in here. Like, it really gets under my skin, and so it really took away from the story. It's like, so just, they're very, very immature characters, and so that the characters aren't enjoyable because of that. But premise, I mean, you have plenty of other books like where the premise are you have, vampires or witches or whatever, and they're going to the school. And so that's kind of the premise. There you have Zoe and she gets marked, which if you get marked, you become a fledgling vampire. And so you go to the special school, and then I think it's 3 years or something, you'll either turn into a full vampire or you won't make the change and you'll die essentially. And so they go to the school and there's kind of something deeper going on too. Like there's something else going on that's not quite right. And so I like the premise. There's kind of this Native American aspect, which I really like. It's just like way too teen drama, and really superficial drama and really immature drama. And I don't enjoy that, and I don't enjoy all the pop culture aspects. So it's really the writing that gets this one down for me. As far as Realmathon, it did get me. I did use it for defending. I'm not gonna go down through all the prompts or the bonus points or anything. I'm just gonna tell you how many points I got. So I used it to defend my team, which was Team Enya, which is a fantasy based team. And so we got 50 points for this. So it did give me quite a few points, but it was a bit of a disappointment for sure. So there's that one. Then next up, we have our 3 stars. So first up was Afrotistic by Kala Allen Omeza. And this one is was the April pick for Autism Reads, which is kind of a read along slash book club group, um, put on by Christine over at An Autistic Reader. And so this was the pick. So this is kind of the bottom of the barrel for me. I liked the autism rep. As far as the autism rep from what we've read so far with the Autism Reads books, this one I felt was the best represented. And I really connected to how kind of her traits and how they present themselves. But the story itself, the plot drug for me. Basically, her whole goal is to um, make the Dean's Merit Society, and so she's trying to figure out a way to do that. She's starting on a new school, trying to figure out how to connect to other people and find a way to make the Dean's Merit Society, which she has to be a leader of a group of at least 3 people. And so she comes up with this group that is for mainly autistic people, but also anybody's welcome, any neurodivergent type or anybody that just wants to learn more. Like, so the rep was so good, but the story just drug and drug and drug for me. And so, yeah, I didn't enjoy the story itself, but the rep was 5 out of 5. And for this one, I also used it to defend, and this one got me 33 points in defending. So not too bad. Then next up, let's see here. So next up, we actually had my audiobook that I listened to, and I listened to The Bone Witch by Rin Chipeko. And this one, I don't know. Like, I had a really hard time. Like, it didn't keep my interest very well. And I was a little confused at the end. Like, I don't know if I missed something. Um, or if that was just the ending. Audio is not my preferred method, but it definitely was a struggle, but I did get through it. And yeah, I ended up using it to defend again, and we got 62 points for that one. But it was definitely a little bit of a struggle. Like, I don't know what was going on there. And like I said, I'm a little confused. Basically, you have the main character, Tia, and she is a bone witch, which is a witch, basically necromancy. And so she goes to become an Asha, a dark Asha, because she's a bone witch. And so basically, the story, it kind of goes back and forth between like interview style and then her telling her story of her becoming a bone witch. I did like she had her brother Fox, which was how she learned she was a bone witch because she raised him from the dead. So that was kind of cool. There's these like creatures um, Deva or something like that. I can't remember. But they have to go and raise them from the dead, get their um like their heartstone or something. Can't remember if they have a heartstone. I know the people wear a heartstone, but anyway, they have to raise them, get something from them, and then put them back to sleep. Otherwise, if they don't, then they start wreaking havoc around. And yeah, the premise of it was pretty cool, but and I don't know, I listened to it on audio. I didn't have a problem with the narrators. There was two, there was a female and a male, and they seemed fine, so I think it was the story itself. But I do struggle with audio, so I might have enjoyed it more if I read it physically. I don't know, but I gave it a 3 stars. So then next, this one, I was so excited for this one and it did let me down a little bit. So this was Orphan Monster Spy by Matt Killing. And this one, it was yellow, so historical. And it was Goldilocks, UK author setting, and Matt Killing is from Birmingham, I want to say. Yeah. And so this one basically, you have this Jewish girl. It's, I think it kind of takes place like right before World War II. But she ends up losing her mother and she kind of runs into this guy. And so she starts working for him as a spy and gets sent to this boarding school where the daughters of like high ranking Nazis go to school. And she's kind of tasked with becoming friends with this specific girl in order to kind of get into this compound where the girl's dad is a scientist working on something, and but the school itself is kind of dark, and dangerous. The girls are very like there's kind of an upper class and they are kind of dangerous. They kind of single her out, and kind of hurt her a little bit. So she's kind of having to. So first she's an orphan, and then in the school she calls them monsters, and she's a monster, and then becomes more of a spy trying to get into this compound and such. And again, there's a lot I liked about this, but it did kind of drag for me again. Um, and it just, I don't know, it didn't quite connect to the characters. Um, there was kind of a lot going on as well, and that I don't think needed to be like there was one particular character that I didn't think needed to be there. And yeah, I liked a lot of aspects, and reading like the notes behind, like at the end, I like doing that because it tells you what was kind of real inspiration, and there were these schools and such, and so I did like that, and it kind of deals, with young women and kind of grooming and such as well. So overall, not a bad one. I am glad I read it. I actually think I'm going to keep it. I might reread it in the future. And it was kind of nice to get a look on the other side. Because most of the time, like these World War ones, you're kind of looking at like the Jewish that are being persecuted and such, and not so much like she's Jewish, the character herself is, but she's on the Nazi side of things. So it was kind of interesting getting that viewpoint instead. So I did like it. It just wasn't my favorite of the month. So then next up we have, I don't know, did I say what points it got? So this one I actually attacked, and I attacked Team Sanctum with it. So the way I attacked, like my group in the Discord, they would vote who they were attacking on each week. I decided to just go, alphabetical. So I did Cyrus, then Ilma, then Sanctum, and then loop back around when I was attacking. So this one was Team Sanctum, and it was -14 for attacking points, and then page count always got you positive points. So I got +20 for my team based on page count. So there was that one. Then next is also a 3 star is Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Booley. I really, really wanted to love this one and I didn't. The ending was awesome, but up until that point, again, it drug on and on and on. And it was kind of a bit repetitive and just not very well written. And then the ending was awesome. And the Native American cultural aspects and such were really, really good. I enjoyed that part of the book, and then, like I said, the ending really pulled it out. Basically, in this one, I forget her name. You have Donis, and she's never quite fit in. You know, she's Ojibwe, um, but she also has her kind of white family as well. And so then she meets Jamie, who is a new recruit on her brother Levi's hockey team, and their whole relationship was really kind of weird. Um, I didn't think the chemistry was quite there, but Jamie kind of has a secret, and she ends up seeing a murder, and then she kind of gets drugged into this like FBI investigation as well. Um, but the ending, like I said, I really enjoyed the ending, but up to that point, it was just kind of repetitive and draggy. This one, it was Orange, so a mystery or thriller, and it was Lilo and Stitch, so a young adult or middle grade outcast, which she definitely kind of didn't fit in with either side of her people, her Ojibwe side or her white side. This one I used for defending, and it gave me 38 points. So, um, again, one like there's a lot I enjoyed about it. I am gonna keep it, but it ended up only being a 3-star for me. Then next up we have Redemptor by Jordan Fuego. This one is the sequel to um, Raybearer, and for this one, it was orange, but it was sit on a bench. So orange is mystery thriller, but it was a special square because you sat on the bench, and so it could have been any genre. And it was Lion King lessons learned. And for this one, you have again I can't remember the name, Terasai. And so in the first one, you have the Ray Bear and his Council of 11. So she gets sent to try to become part of his Council of 11 and then try to kill him. Her mom is just known as the Lady, and there's events. So this is following that. I was a bit disappointed with this one. What I thought was going to happen, because in this world you also have redemptors that end up going down into the underworld and they either make it through or they don't. Um, and so it's basically these kids are sent to appease like the dark spirits down there. And so I thought that's what it was gonna be, but it's not like the whole. It's mostly in this Raybearer world, like the whole story, and then the very end is part of the Redemptor challenge that goes on, like going on through the underworld. I still, again, I just didn't really connect to the writing, which I didn't in Ray Bear either. There was something about the writing I didn't quite connect to. But still, overall, I like the premise. It's, African inspired, which I thought was really cool. There's like songs and such that they sing, which was really enjoyable. But there's just something that I didn't quite connect to, and it didn't, what I expected from the book wasn't what I got. For this one, I attacked Ilma, and so it got me negative 31 points for attacking, and for page count, I got plus 20 for my own team. So there was that one. Then we have the last 3-star, is The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. And I actually think I ended up giving this 3.5 on Storygraph because I do Storygraph and Goodreads, but of course Goodreads doesn't have half stars. But this one I don't know. I still don't quite know what I feel about it. Um, but it was a wild ride. And again, it was more the writing style for this one that kind of dropped it down because he is a bit wordy and kind of goes off on tangents and such, which is something I don't like in writing. That's why I don't like Stephen King. Um, but the premise of it is so interesting. So you have these 4 Native American friends, and in their younger years, they did something, and now I can't remember if it's like 10 years later or something. And it's coming back to haunt them, like there's something after them now. And it was really really cool. Like I like the premise. I The first half of the story kind of struggled with, but once it got into the second half I really really started to enjoy it, even with the wordiness and kind of the tangents and stuff. um yeah, just the premise was really really cool. So for this one it was yellow, which again historical, and even though this isn't technically like a historical, I used it because their history is coming back to haunt them. So that's kind of why I went that way. And it was seven sins or virtues, and I got the sin of wrath. And this entity that's coming after them is very wrathful. So it worked really, really well. I did attack with this book. I attacked Team Cyrus, and I got -20 for attacking, and then I got +10 points for my own team based on page count. But yeah, this one was a crazy ride. I do have Mongrels by this author as well, and I can't wait to try it. I think I'm really gonna enjoy this author's like stories and such, but I might struggle with the writing a little bit. But we'll see. Like I said, Mongrels might be a completely different story. But yeah, overall, even though it was in the 3-star range, like I still really really enjoyed this one. And then we are now into the 4 stars, which was only 2 4 stars, so not a whole lot. And kind of bottom of that is The Choice by Nora Roberts. So my husband and I finally got this read. We've been reading like a few chapters here and there for the past couple months, but it we read the bulk of it, in April. And I did look in the facts, and it said you could count a book that you already started as long as you read the bulk of it, in the month of April. So I was able to count this for Realmathon as well, which was great. This is book 3 in the Dragon Heart Legacy, and basically, in this one, you have Breen and her best friend Marcos, and Reen ends up learning that her mother has been lying to her, and she has like all this money, and so she ends up going to Ireland, which takes her in turn. She finds the land of Tala. She follows this dog into the land, so there's like a portal in the woods, and she kind of learns that she has this history and family in this other world and such, and like she has a calling. And so she kind of has to make, the first one is the awakening, then the becoming, and then the choice. So she kind of awakens to her powers and such, and then in the end she has to kind of make a choice about whether she's going to step up for this land, because there is this god that is wanting to just destroy everything and just take over all the worlds. Um, this series, so Nora Roberts is my favorite writer. The writing I still really enjoyed, but a lot of the series was just kind of filler. It did not need to be a 3-part series, I don't think. My husband and I both agreed, because a lot of it was filler. It could have been condensed down to even just one book, but maybe two. Because even the first ones, like the first one, it kind of was like her, discovering, and it was kind of slow paced, and then the awakening, um, that one I don't even remember really what happened in it, because it's all the same thing. She's training to fight this god, and the battle in this one was at the very very end. So this was a rollover, so it wasn't for any of my game prompts. I did use this to attack again Team Cyrus. It gave me -30 points against them, and then +20 for page count. So there was that one. Then the other 4-star was The One and Only Ivan by Catherine Applegate. This was so cute, and it was actually kind of funny. So I read, which we'll get to it, I read a book by Caitlin Doughty this month, which I've been wanting to read for a while. Caitlin has a YouTube channel called Ask a Mortician, and she does different videos. Some, about like the process of death, and sometimes like tragedies that have happened, in history and such. So I read this one, and this one is about this captive gorilla who is part of a zoo exposition, or exhibit in a mall. And there's also, he has this elephant, I forget her name, next to him, and then this baby elephant comes in named Rosie, and then there's also the dog as well. Um, and so, it's kind of about how animals are used for entertainment and how that's wrong, and they're not always treated well and as they should be. And so then, I read the Caitlin Doughty book, and then she released a video on YouTube, which I'll link it down below. And it was all about this elephant named Tyke, who was part of this circus, who went on this rampage and killed a bunch of people. And it just all tied together. Like, it was just weird that she released that video when I read this one and then her book, and then it all tied together. But anyway, this one, it was cute. It was also sad and heartbreaking, and then also uplifting at the same time. This is like a middle grade. I did read this as part of Peace Talks. Well, that was the weekend, and you got an extra 10 points for any books you read during that weekend. So I was trying to read some shorter books so I could get more books read. This one was for a purple prompt, which was any genre, and we got Bambi, which needed to have an animal main character. So this obviously worked perfect. I did do defending. Again, I used it during peace talks, and I got plus 34 for my team. So not a high number, but it did. And it was, like I said, this, I'll talk more about this because this is one of my top three, but really, really cute book and an important narrative too. So, like, if you have kids, I mean, it's cute to read yourself as well, but if you have kids, it's important, way to open up that narrative, especially, because, like, I mean, I like going to zoos and I've enjoyed the circus and such, but it is important to know, that sometimes these animals are kind of exploited a little bit. So yeah, a really, really cute book. So that was it for 4 stars. And now, like I said, I had 10 5-star reads. Really, really good month. So first up, bottom of the barrel for my 5 stars is Finlay Donovan Jumps the Gun by Elle Cosimano. This is the third book in the Finlay Donovan series, and I'm so excited. There's going to be another one. I forget when it's coming out, but it's going to be a while yet. And the way this one ended, I'm like, I'm ready for it. So in this one, you have Finlay, and she is a writer, kind of struggling mom of two. She's recently divorced from her husband, and he's still kind of in the picture, and there's shenanigans and such. And basically, in the first one, she's talking to her agent about her next book, and somebody overhears her and thinks she's a murder for hire. And so it kind of just spins off from there, and she kind of gets wrapped up with the mob and such. And so, yeah, it's a cozy mystery, and it's a lot of fun. These aren't my favorite types of books, but this series is it's so enjoyable. So yeah, I really, really enjoyed this one. This one I picked, it was my character pick because I got Pooh Bear, and that's a classic or a comfort read. And as cozy as this is, it's just a comfort read. Like, it's perfect if you're not feeling well and you just want something to have a good time with. This one is perfect. So there's that. I did use this to attack, and I attacked Sanctum with this one. It only got me negative 12, so it wasn't a huge attack, but it also only got me plus 10 for page count, so not a high number of points, but it was a fun read. Anyway, I was going to try to read this one during Peace Talks, but I just didn't have the time. I think I started it that evening, but I only read like 50 pages, so but yeah, a fun book for sure. So that's kind of bottom of 5 stars. Then next we have War by Laura Thalassa. This one, so it's the Four Horsemen series. So in the first one you had pestilence, and he was coming through, spreading disease and such. This one you have war, so he's going through towns. He's over in the Middle East. And so you have Miriam, and she's in Jerusalem, and then War sees her and decides that she's his wife. And obviously I gave it 5 stars. I still like the writing, I still like the whole premise. I did not like War. Their whole relationship is really, really toxic. Um, and how they ended up coming together, I did not like at all. Like, very, very toxic. But like I said, I still like the premise. I still like the writing style. I'm really excited. I wasn't able to get Famine, which is the third one on my May TBR, but I'm gonna try to read it anyway. Obviously, when I'm filming this, it's early days. I always kind of film about a month ahead. Um, but yeah, it's just I really, really enjoyed this. Even though this particular one wasn't my favorite, and I found their relationship very, very toxic. For this one, it was red, so romance, and it was Milan Warring Nations. It's war, you know. Even though it's not like nations against each other, it's war coming through with a group of men just like destroying everything, all the people. It's still it fit perfectly. This one was also I was able to use it for Tales from Two Trails, which is Kim over at Expedition Through Pages. Her TBR game. We did this past round where it was us against her, and the viewers actually ended up winning. So I was able to use this for mood read for that because it definitely was like, even though it was part of my TBR, I picked it up a lot earlier than I had planned on because I just wanted to read it. So it was definitely a mood read for me. This one I did defend, and we got 56 points for this one. So that was pretty good. Yeah, I can't wait to continue the series. I really hope I can squeeze Famine in the end of May. And then next up, we have The Dragon's Promise by Elizabeth Lim. This is the second one in the Six Crimson Cranes series. And a lot of people didn't like this one as much as Six Crimson Cranes. And I can understand why I like the first part of the book, but I really enjoyed the second half. And I thought it was as good as Six Crimson Cranes. So this one you have Shiori, and in the first one she is cursed. Her brothers and her are cursed. Her brothers to be Six Crimson Cranes because she has six brothers, and then she has to wear this bowl on her hat and she can't speak, or her brothers will die. Well, in this one is following kind of the events of that, and she made this promise to two kind of different. You have the dragons and a promise she made to somebody else, and so this is kind of her journey trying to fulfill that promise now. And yeah, this is like I said, I really really enjoyed this one. The beginning, not as much because kind of the love interest in this one definitely wasn't part of the beginning, and so and her relationship with the dragon that's part of the beginning is a little bit weird. So I didn't enjoy this one as much, but I still really, really did enjoy it. And the ending I really, really enjoyed as well. So in this one, it was for I had two discs that I wasn't able to use, and so that's kind of my last prompt is whatever number of discs I wasn't able to use. The book has to fit that number in some way. So this one was two, and this is the second in a duology, so it fits two both ways. And then this one I was able to use for Tales from Two Trails, and it was a book featuring water. And then for Realmathon, I attacked Team Elma, and we did negative 38 points, so it did a big negative, and I got plus 20 for page count. So that was a good read for sure. Then next up we have The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien, and this was my genre-a-thon read. April was spring. It's time for spring, so either fantasy or fairy tale. And so this was my official pick for that, and obviously fantasy. And I read a lot of fantasy, so I tried to go with a fantasy that I'm not quite um, as comfortable with. And this is one I've been putting off for a long time. I just kind of had this block, and I really enjoyed this one. It helped that I had seen the movie because, like, all the different scenes, like, I knew parts of the movie it was from, or that the movie had taken from the book. And so that helped me kind of follow along, and I noted the changes and such. But yeah, I'm glad I finally got this read. I really, really enjoyed it. I do plan on continuing with like Lord of the Rings next, which I have heard, is a little bit more denser than The Hobbit. But I really like the writing style and everything, and I can't believe it took me this long to actually read this book. So this was definitely a win for Genreathon. And then this one I did use for defending, and I got 40 points for this one. So that was a pretty good deal there. Then let's see here. Next up, we have Longshadow by Olivia Atwater. And so this one was another one I used for peace talks. This one I had gotten purple, which was any genre, and I got Tarzan seeking parental approval. And so in this one, you have Abigail and the marriageable women of Regency London are dying. So, and neither her father nor high society believe she's capable of figuring out what's going on. And so it's about her, trying to prove that she can figure it out, like she can be helpful in this case. And it's just, this is the third one in the Regency fairy tale series, and they're just so cozy and fun. Like, this is cozy fantasy, and I've loved every single one. The second one wasn't as enjoyable to me as the first one, Half a Soul. Half a Soul's my favorite by far. This one probably would be following Half a Soul, then the second one, which was 10,000 Stitches. But I really, really love this one. It was so good. And for this one, I defended and I got plus 55. And again, I used this for peace talks as well. That was one of the three I read. So there's that one. Then let's see here. Then we have To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. So I originally read this in school, and I bought it years ago, planning on rereading it, and I just never did. Um, so this was the time because I got purple, which again any genre, and I got a bookworm, which the prompt was to reread a book. So this was perfect for that. And I loved it just as much as I remember loving it in school, probably even a little bit more because I was able to comprehend a little bit more now that I'm older. And for this one, I did defend, only got 22 points, so not a big number of points, but I'm so glad I read this book. Like, it was definitely way past time. So this is really good. Basically, you have Scout, and she's reflecting on a time her father's a lawyer, and he's defending a black gentleman who's being accused of assaulting a white woman. And there's also Boo, who lives down the street, and he's kind of this mystery. He never leaves the house, and so as kids, they're always, trying to figure out what's he doing in there. Like, can we get him to come out and such? And it's just, you have the coming of age story, but then you also have that social commentary regarding race and such. That's really, really good as well. And like I said, I love coming of age stories and such, and I really enjoyed this. I don't remember specifically reading them, but I remember enjoying it when I was in school. But being able to comprehend more of that social aspect, and the racism and such, which it just made for a really enjoyable read. So I really, really enjoyed this one. So yeah, that's To Kill a Mockingbird. Then we have our Caitlin Doughty book, and this is Smoke Gets in Your Eyes and Other Lessons from the Crematory. And again, I've used this one for peace talks as well. Like I said, I've been watching her YouTube channel for years. Absolutely love it. And I didn't know she was an author. She has, this book, Will My Cat Eat My Eyeballs? And I know another one. I can't remember the title though, but yeah, when I found out she had written books, I was like, I have to read them. And so for this one, I was yellow, so another historical, and it was Gopher, self-proclaimed expert. And so again, not a historical, but again, she talks about kind of the history of undertaking and such. And so I definitely, like stretching the prompt, or the genre anyway. But yeah, this was so good. It really takes you kind of behind the scenes and how, after you die, what happens and such. I will say trigger warnings. It does talk about, what happens if, a baby dies or you lose a pregnancy. So keep that in mind as well if you're reading it, because that can definitely be hard hitting. I used this to defend and I got 35 points. And again, it was the third book that I read for Peace Talks and just really, really good. So absolutely loved it. I can't wait to read Will My Cat Eat My Eyeballs? And I'm definitely going to try to get the other book as well. Then next we have Winter by Marissa Meyer, which is the fourth book in the main Lunar Chronicles series um, by this author. There's also Levena's story, which I think is Fairest is the title of the book, and then there's like a collection of short stories. But this is the fourth and final one of the main series, and absolutely loved it. My favorite's still Cress in the series. I really, really like Cress, which Cress was the third one. So you have the first one, which is Cinder, which is based on Cinderella. Then you have the second one, Scarlet, which is Little Red Riding Hood. Cress is based on Rapunzel, and then Winter is based on Snow White. This is probably my second favorite of the series. With Cress, I just really like the relationship between Cress and Thorn, and seeing it again and here, like I really liked it. And then I like the relationship between Winter and Jason as well. But yeah, this was actually my first read. I wanted to get the bigger books out of the way right away, and so for this one, it was read, and which is romance. And even though this would be more sci-fi fantasy, because it's based on these fairy tales where they're finding their loves and such, romance I definitely think works for this. And it was a free pick, so this worked out well. It also worked for Tales from Two Trails, and one of the prompts was to read a sci-fi. So those are the only three prompts that I fulfilled. There's 6 total prompts, but I wasn't able. I did get the other prompts read, um, but well, 2 of the other prompts read. One was to finish a book that you've already picked up before, which we finished the choice, but we finished it after the cutoff date. Another one was to read from YouTube feed, and so for that one, the next book I'm going to talk about worked for that one because it was a host favorite, so I found it through YouTube. And then the other one was to read a favorite author, and I just didn't get to that book. So this was the third prompt for Tales from Two Trails that I was able to fulfill, and it was to read a sci-fi. And I used this one to defend, and this definitely got me the most number of points. It got me 74 points for the team. So, and it was, because of it's over 800 pages, so it had the highest bonus point for page count. And yeah, I love this series. It's really interesting because it's based on the fairy tales, but you have that sci-fi element as well, which is just fantastic. And so basically, it starts off with Cinder, and she's a cyborg, and you have Kai, who's the emperor, and then you have Levena, who is the queen of the lunar people, and she's threatening war unless Kai marries her. But Cinder also, there's something deeper with her as well. And so Levena is wanting to capture her and such. And so from there, each book, the focus, so Scarlet, starts tying in with Cinder, and then you have Cress who ties in with the group, and then finally you have Winter who ties in with the group. So really, really good series. I was kind of hesitant to go in. I wasn't quite sure how I would feel about it, but I really, really enjoyed the series. Then we have Into the Drowning Deep by Mary Grant. So this is the one that was a host favorite. It was the favorite of Eleanor Reads. I don't know why it took me so long to read this book. I love water horror in like films and such. I never thought to read water horror. I don't know why. I love this book, like absolutely love. There are a few things that I would have changed, but despite that, like it was still 5 stars. Like I thought it was could have been a little bit more horror-y, more action in the beginning, where it kind of saved that towards the end. But it's also cool because each part starts off like with little snippets of either like um like a journal or a newspaper article or a lecture from one of the characters. And so you just get little snippets and then it kind of goes into the story. So this one, basically, it's an entertainment industry and they send this crew out to make a mockumentary about mermaids. But that crew ends up all disappearing and they just find the ship, and the footage that they find shows, that something sinister kind of went on. And so they end up sending out this new team, including the sister of one of the people who died on the first ship, and they send them out to kind of investigate and see if potentially these mermaids are actually real and maybe what happened. And so yeah, it's really good. It has a lot of disability rep. It has autism rep. It has two deaf characters. Um, their sister knows ASL and such, so it has a lot of disability rep. And this is an example because one of the things I kind of get frustrated with sometimes in books is they try to do too much. Like I got frustrated with On the Edge of Gone by Corinne Duvis. Like there was just too much. She had the autism rep. She had it has LGBTQ plus IA plus rep in here. And that one it did too. That one had a trans character. um you had alcohol or substance abuse in that other one. And so like sometimes I feel like they try to do too much and it detracts from some of the others. That wasn't the case in this one. Like it felt very natural, and everything seemed to fit. It didn't feel like they were trying to force these characters and these, representations into the book. It felt like it fit perfectly. So I really, really enjoyed this one. This one wasn't a prompt for my game; it was an extra one I added on. So I've been wanting to read this one, and since it was a host favorite, it was perfect time. And this one got me 53 points for defending, so plus 53 for my team, and absolutely love this. I'm definitely going to be looking into more water horror. So if you have any suggestions, let me know down below. And I'm going to look more. I know Mira Grant, Shauna McGuire, they're the same, just different pen names. So yeah, I'm definitely going to be looking for more. And I have been wanting to read the Wayward Children series under Shauna McGuire. But I'm definitely going to be looking more under the name Mira Grant as well. So, and then last, top of the barrel for enjoyment was Children of Fallen Gods by Carissa Broadbent. If I could have given this one more than 5 stars, I would have, like, definitely a 6 star. I love this so much. This was just everything I wanted. I'm gonna be reading the next one, which is Mother of Death and Dawn, I think, in May, and then I'm diving into her next series, which is The Serpent and the Wings of Night, which everybody's kind of talking about right now. But I'm still working on this one. But yeah, as much as I love this series, next one has vampires, so I'm definitely probably gonna love it even more. But this one, basically, you have Tasana and Max. And so in the first one, Tasana's a slave and she goes to buy her freedom, and her owner kind of turns on her. And so she escapes and she goes to the orders and she wants to learn how to use magic, how to utilize her magic and such. And she kind of makes a deal with them. Um, that if they help her free the people she left behind, she'll help them with their war that's going on. So this one's kind of following those events from the first book. And yeah, this is such an amazing. I love Tasana and Max's relationship. Um, they have such a great relationship, and I love both characters. And so this one I got read, so romance, and it was Cinderella inspiring read. And I do think this is inspiring, and kind of one of the things I like about Cinderella. Cinderella is my favorite fairy um, tale, fairy princess, or whatever, Disney princess, just because no matter how bleak life seems, she just keeps pushing. And I really think Tasana does the same thing. And now, Max was kind of in a funk, but now that he has Tasana, he's really pushing and such too. So, an amazing series. definitely, if you can get your hands on it, try it. And I can't wait to finish this up and then dive into the next one. So this one, I attacked Team Cyrus with this one. It was negative 43 points, but it also got me positive 30 points for my own team because of the page count, because it's chunky. So that was it for those. As far as my stats go, so I ended up reading 7,131 pages. I listened to 12 hours and 8 minutes of audio. I had 18 fiction, 1 nonfiction. 18 of those were physical, 1 was audio, and I had no rereads. I had 9 young adult, 9 fantasy, and again, these overlap. 5 romance, 4 contemporary, 3 thriller, 2 classic, 2 LGBTQ+, 2 science fiction, 2 mystery, 2 literary, 2 horror, 2 historical, 1 children's, 1 science, and 1 memoir. My top moods were adventurous, emotional, and the mysterious and dark tide, which these are always my top moods. Like, I obviously have kind of a lane I stick in for the most part. For my top 3, let me grab them again. The first one is definitely Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant. Even though Children of Fallen Gods beat this as the one I enjoyed the most, this one is gonna stick with me, and it's water horror. So that, like, I love water horror. I love marine biology, and like I said, I love watching films that are water horror, and so definitely past time I read a book. The marine biology aspect, like, it talks about, there's scientists on the ship, and so it does talk about, different life and such. The disability rep in this one, like I said, especially being autistic, like, I always love, and that was a surprise. I didn't know that going in. And deaf rep, I don't think we get enough of that, especially ASL and such. So that was really good. And the cohesiveness of this, there was a lot of different characters and a lot going on with these different characters, but like I said, it didn't feel forced. It felt like it worked really, really well together. So that's why that one's the top book of the month. The next spot goes to Smoke Gets in Your Eyes by Doughty. And again, like, I've always enjoyed her YouTube channel, and I like learning about death and kind of what happens, the process and such. And so this was a really good book, and the fact that she included history and such. So I put as reasons why it got number 2 in the top 3, I put Doughty. Like, she just has such a great personality, and as she's teaching you about this stuff and whatnot, like, it's her. So that right there, the history and cultural aspect, because she also talks about undertaking in different cultures, and like the history of undertaking. It's informative. Like, it teaches you the process and kind of what happens. And then just her humor, like, she definitely lightens it up, which she does on her YouTube channel as well. She just has humor and she lightens it up. So really, really enjoyed that one. And then the next one, which it's buried. Oh no, it's not. It's right here. So the third spot, I debated between this and The Only Good Indians. But The Only Good Indians, the characters weren't necessarily very memorable or anything like that. So I decided to go with The One and Only Ivan by Catherine Applegate. And especially, this in conjunction with reading the Doughty book and then watching that video about Tyke the Elephant on Doughty's YouTube channel is kind of it all tied together. And so for this one, you have a gorilla, an elephant, and a dog. Like, those are 3 of some of my favorite animals, and they're all in one book, so I really enjoyed that. It's an important topic, like I said, the exploitation of these animals for entertainment, but at the same time not caring for them properly is kind of a big deal. You also have the animal point of view, which, is told from the point of view of Ivan, which, he's kind of a funny guy, and I really enjoy that. And it just really hits you in the feels. Like, it makes you sad, but then in the end, like, it makes you kind of happy, and it's inspiring. So, like, it put me through a range of emotions for sure. So that's why I got the third spot in the top 3. So I did really, really enjoy that one. And then let's go ahead and talk about the books that I did not get to. So first up, we have Freedom's Choice by Anne McCaffrey. So this was a blue pick which is sci-fi, and it was Pocahontas, Peacemaker, or Diplomat. I did read about 20 pages of this, and it was kind of towards the end of the month, and I just wasn't feeling it. I've already read so it's a 4-book series, and I read the first one last month, and I had read the 3 and 4 previous to that. I started with book 4, then read book 3, and then read book 1 last month. And this one kind of started off slow, and I already know what happens, and so I wasn't feeling it after reading, 19 books. Well, at this time, let's see, I have like 1 book to go. So I read 18 books. But yeah, I wasn't feeling this one. So this is a softie enough. I think in the future what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to read the series all together. So this one I'm not going to read anytime soon. I decided I'm just going to put it back with the rest of the series. But I would like to reread the whole series in the correct order and all together at some point. So I'll read this at that time because it is kind of a slow start. Then we have Nora Roberts' Montana Sky. So this was Orange, which is mystery or thriller, and it was Elsa and Anna, Frozen or Cold Landscape. And so this one I chose because it's a romantic suspense, which I count in kind of the mystery thriller range. And I just, it's coming, summer's coming, and I didn't want to read a wintry book. This one, it's in Montana, and it does take place like through the seasons, but the bulk of it's in winter. But yeah, I wasn't feeling it with warm weather and such. I didn't want the cold landscape. Then we had Stranger in My Arms by Lisa Kleypas. This was read, it was a bookworm free pick, so a free pick romance, and I chose this one. So I read the Friday Harper series as a buddy read, and I want to continue my Lisa Kleypas journey, but again, I had so many other books I was reading. This one just kind of got pushed down, and I didn't get to. Next, we had Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. I listened to this one and loved it, and so I wanted to go ahead and reread it. But that ended up not happening. This was kind of bottom of the barrel because I did just listen to it. But I would like to read it physically at some point. But again, it's just going to go back on my shelf for now. And it wasn't a big priority since I did listen to it. And I still have the story in my head. It's just I like reading books physically. And I love the story so much that I wanted to do that. But I will reread it at some point, just not right now. This one, it was read, and it was Snow White, the number 7 rep. And if I remember right, it ends on page 317. So it ends in the number 7. But yeah, that one's going back. So all those prompts will go back into the honey jar to be repicked because I'm not rolling any of those over. The last book I did not get to was A Magic Steeped in Poison by Judy Eileen. This one is going to be my rollover, so kind of my punishment is I have one mandatory rollover that I have to read before I can get started on any of my other books. So this one's going to be that. This one, it was green, so fantasy, and it was Rapunzel healing aspect. And so yeah, this is going to be my punishment book that I roll over because I really do want to read this one. So I'm going to roll it over, get this one read right away in May so I can start my May TBR. And yeah, I'm really, really excited for this one. So that's my mandatory rollover. And the only other one I have to talk about is Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. Did not make any more progress on this, but I do still want to keep reading it. So we're gonna keep pushing on that one. Hopefully I'll have time to read it. I actually plan, now that my husband and I are finished with the choice and we're not reading anything together at night, I'm going to put this as my bedside book and just read a couple chapters a night so I can get through it. Because it's not one, it is kind of slower pace, so it's not one I like to just sit and read all the way through. So this is a perfect one to read a couple chapters at night before bed. That's my plan with this one. The only other two rollovers I had were the last two for my ABC Author Challenge, which they're over, ready for hopefully reading in May. But it was Eve by W.M. Paul Young and Who is the River by Paul Zallis. They've been rolling over since December because they're the last two books of my ABC Author Challenge, and I just need to get to them. which I have a plan going forward to hopefully get a little bit lighter TBRs so I can get some of the other reads that I want to done. But that is it. I'm just gonna put up my haul here. So I did not write it down, but I hauled 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 books in April as well. Um, so yeah, I'm really pleased with April, even though I did have a stack that I ended up not reading. I read a lot of books, and to have 10 5-star books, like that's absolutely amazing. And out of the 19 books I read, 12 were really, really enjoyable. So that is really, really good. So I'm really, really happy with how April went. Let me know if you participated in Realmathon and um, how many points you got for your team, what team you're on, and everything. Or if any of these books are ones you have read or ones you're interested in, or what your favorite read of April was. I know this is a long one, but lots of books to talk about. I'm going to go ahead and leave you guys here. Happy reading, everyone. Bye.